Welcome to the Courier 13 podcast. Our goal with this show is to present conversations among filmmakers that impart knowledge and inspiration to people who are currently making cinematic content, or for those who aspire to make movies and television but don't have the know-how yet to start, or for people who are just fascinated by the filmmaking process and the entertainment industry. Man,
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you, Werner. Thank you for having me. And yeah,
it is nice. It's super great to finally get the chance, because we were talking earlier that I've been following you on social media for a long time. I've actually seen a lot of your films on social media, or snippets of them, and I know you through a few mutual connections, a few mutual friends, but this is the first time I've ever actually gotten to sit down and talk with you, discuss your stuff. So I'm really, really happy to be doing it with you. I guess kind of where I want to start off here, it's like, we were talking a little bit earlier about just like, before we started recording, we talked about finding yourself as an artist, like finding your way into a story and finding your way, your unique way of storytelling. And I know for every artist and filmmaker that it's their own journey, and it takes a process.
Yeah.
You've gone into Paul University. You have had, from what I would say, a good experience there. I mean, I don't know all the trials and tribulations you've had to endure, but I would assume a relatively nice experience. How is your time learning and growing as an artist? Like, how have you found your process of storytelling? Like, what was your journey into? This is a very loaded question, but like, what is your journey? What was your journey into storytelling and your process?
Yeah, to sort of do a Spark Notes version of it, it's like, I've always loved movies. Growing up is actually like one of the staples in my household. So, I was raised by a single mom, and I had two older sisters and me. And so we weren't rolling in dough. So activities were limited. So my mom would take us out to free events, so like museums, and like she would rent films from the Chicago Public Library, and she'll go to Blockbuster and like go to like a corner store, get us some snacks, and we'll have a movie night. And
for for people who don't know, Blockbuster is a place where you can go rent movies.
Yeah, that was
for really young people who don't know.
Yeah, for the really young kids that don't know what it is, Blockbuster used to be my all-time favorite place to go.
So good.
It was like the treat. I remember like being little and my mom saying, "Okay, you guys were good today at Target. You guys want to go to Blockbuster?"
You gotta get a movie? You want to get your favorite movies from Blockbusters? Let's go.
And then, like, for me, we'll go to Blockbuster, and then my mom will like, let's get some Pizza Hut. I'm like, yes, like my life has been made. So yeah, that's how like I started with movies. Like, she would rent movies out. We were at home, and I don't know. That started my fascination with it. Really.
What about films fascinated you?
Just escapism. Like, we would watch a lot of fantasy films, a lot of comedy. We didn't do that much drama in our household, but it was more like fantasy, comedy, films. And it was a place to escape, because there was so much going on, like in our lives, stuff, family, outside stuff. So just to watch a movie was just like, I get to be at peace for a certain amount of time. And I think even now when I watch a film, it's just like escapism. It's just like I can breathe. Like, I can have an hour, 2 hours just to like, I don't have to think about, I don't know, my own insecurities, about job, about my friends, about like family. I can just focus on these characters' lives, be invested, get into this world, and I don't know, breathe, like I said. So that's where it started. And then I think my path to like filmmaking is not linear at all. So I did well, not, I'll take that back. It's sort of linear, but not really. So I did acting in undergrad, and that was pretty cool. I wrote as well, so I was like English and theater major with a dance minor. So it was creative, all about. But when I graduated, I decided to go into music producing. So I worked at this place called Music Garage in the city. Great place for like renting out, like if you have a band to rehearse, all that. Plug for them, yada yada yada. But I really post undergrad, I just did a lot of like administrative stuff, art administrative. So Music Garage, and I went to Broadway in Chicago, working in their marketing department. And after a while, I got the bug again to just create. So instead of going to directing, I fell back into acting, which was I loved. You know, I did the whole like got an agent, went on auditions.
Oh, you did the whole thing. You went the extra mile.
Did plays, blah 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 blah. And then I just got tired after a while because like I kept auditioning for the same things. Like, and I've said this so many times, but it's like it's gotten better in the industry. But when I was acting, it was like whitewashed black kid, gangster number 17, or like the quirky black friend.
Just a redundancy in roles based on.
Very much so. And
yeah,
I was just like, I'm done with this. And I don't know how, but I'm like, I can write something better. So let me write. And with I don't know, I had training because of my English major, but like scripts and like literature and script writing are totally different.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started writing. I got some people who are like in the industry to read my stuff, and it was crap, and they told me it was crap, but at least I started. And I think the biggest thing from that helped me, to your question, I found the strength in like rallying my resources. So everyone that I knew was a creative in the film industry, I like gleaned from them. And that's what really helped me then to create my own creative habit, and now creating my own art. So it's a long path to get there, but
no,
that's the answer.
No, I mean, there's a lot there to unpack. What I'm very curious is that transition from actor and actor. You're acting, you're going to these auditions, but you feel like I'm only getting a certain type of role. You know, I don't feel free to be whatever kind of role that I want to be and explore all artistic avenues. So I feel like this happens with a lot of writers who feel like they can only get a certain role. Whether it be because of race, sexual orientation, or just like their physical appearance or ageism, even that.
Yeah.
You then, if you can, now not everyone who can act can also write, but if you have that ability to, and also writing is something that can be learned. You can start off not being amazing at it, and then over time and study, you can get better at it. I think you see that transition a lot from actors who are fed up with acting because of the roles they can get, and then they turn into writers. And then once they become writers, they can do whatever you want. You can make whatever role that you want. If you can write and then direct, you are in complete ownership of what the content is that's going on screen. And that for me was the reason why I also, for a very short period of time, and I wasn't as serious about acting as it seems that you were. I mean, I auditioned for like a few theater schools and stuff. But
you were interested in it, and you
there was interest, but then I saw kind of what you saw. It's like I could just write my own stuff, and I love writing, so why wouldn't I just give myself that kind of freedom?
I mean, the industry has changed a lot in terms of like representation and like expansion of stories, but even at least from my own experience with the Black experience, I feel like it's still quite limited. Like when I, transitioned into directing, my first short was Division, and we were talking about that earlier, just like how I made it, but now like emotionally, it could be better. based off like the heart of the story. But I made that short because I went to see La La Land and I was upset by the story. I thought it was just like very generic, visually stunning. Like, I think it's gorgeous. But like in terms of like diversity on screen, there wasn't anything there for me. So that's what pushed me to say like, hey, if they can do it, I can write a short. And I used all my resources. I begged, borrowed. I didn't steal, but I definitely begged a whole bunch of people. And we like made a short film that I'm proud of. It could be better today, but it was born out of solving an issue that I was having with the creative industry. Instead of complaining about it, it's like, how can I make a small solution out of this? And through that, I was able to like hire some friends and a lot of people. So that was cool.
That's good that you like, took initiative instead of, because I feel like a lot of people, especially now, all they do is instead of like actually doing something, they complain about a lot of stuff on social media, and then they don't actually do anything to, act.
Virtue signaling.
I know. And it's just like, okay, like, yeah, like you post about this all on over like your Instagram and like your Snapchat or like TikTok or whatever. And then, but are you actually doing anything to make a change in the industry? So I think I think it's really important that you took initiative and like the small resources that you had, to make this movie that you wanted to make, to bring more diversity into the industry and all that stuff. I mean, and I know it's a short, but I know like a lot of shorts usually get picked up later to become feature films. So maybe like in a few years, who knows? You could make it into a feature
Who knows? But more importantly,
I'll help you. I'll fly out to Chicago and help you make it.
Hey, let's do it.
Well, Danielle, you bring up a fantastic point. It's like, well, even if say the short is not picked up, it still stands as an amazing statement. That's what art is. I mean, I always tell people, and this kind of goes back to what Daniela was saying about, you can either be upset, or if you're an artist, you can create something to combat what you find is missing within the world as it currently stands. And I think that art is always trying to answer, the artist with any piece of art is always trying to answer a question. Like your question is, I watched La La Land and why did I feel so disconnected from it? Why still does someone from my background feels disconnected from what I'm seeing on screen? And why does that have to be that way? And your response in your art is that it doesn't have to be that way. And thus you actually went out and made something. But it's funny. I was talking to someone literally it was 2 nights ago. I was talking to someone, this guy who is a friend of my brother's, and he was talking about wanting to be in the film industry, like wanting to get into it. But he kept every time I told him, and it's like, okay, it's not that hard. First, you gotta volunteer for stuff. You gotta start making connections. You gotta show people that you're really interested in being in the industry, and that's where everyone starts. Like you start on your first thing, you just kind of dive in. At least that was kind of the advice that I was giving this individual. But every time that I would kind of answer one of his questions or one of his concerns, he would just bring up another concern, and like he'd bring up another excuse not to do something or not to make a short. And George, I'd like to get your opinion on this. Like, where do you think that? I mean, do you think like that the reason why some people who may have an artistic inclination don't go into this is because they don't have enough courage and belief in themselves to just do it, to stand in the face of the adversity that they're up against?
I think so. I mean, this industry is not for the weak-willed. It's the trajectory for an artist's career there's no plan for it. And another thing that I think hinders people to go into the arts is there's like this mass this black and white spectrum. Like you're either Spike Lee or you're like making stuff off of Craigslist. Like that's what people's mindset are. And so the stability of like finding success in this career deters people away to even start. And so I think that's the problem or an issue or roadblock that people may have, but you have to start somewhere. And I'm a proponent of that. Like I had no experience with directing at all, but I said I want to make a short. So I just networked across. I called this woman who's now my good friend of mine. She's a writer. I asked her like, hey, would you write this short with me? I don't know how to write a script. Write a short with me. And I reached out to a director who I was in his short film and I loved his style. And I asked him if he can DP/mentor me through the process. I think it can be done. It just, you have to bet on yourself. And I don't think a lot of people want to do that. It's easier to like follow a plan, like, you know, medical school or being a lawyer or I don't know, working in business. There are like these steps that you can easily see. But when as a creative, you have to visualize them yourself. And a lot of people are not comfortable optimizing their own personal vision.
I think that's like, you know, also very important. A lot of people, especially when it's something scary and as big as like the film industry or the TV industry or the, you know, acting industry, you know, I feel like it all comes together at one point, but I just wanted to name like the different parts. But I think a lot of people, because they're so scared and because this industry is so competitive, you know, that they always have that reservation in the back of their head saying, well, what if I don't make it? Or like, what if there's someone like prettier, like better than, or, you know, I'm speaking in like terms of me being like a woman and wanting to get into the acting. Sure. You know, but I think that's something that crosses everyone's mind is there's, you know, there's like someone that's always going to be better than you or like worse than you. And like, but you have to, I guess, you know, the point is that yes, there's someone that's going to be a better writer, better actor, better director than you. Always. And then there's always going to be someone that's worse than you. But at one point you have to be like, okay, you have to get into the mindset of saying like, I'm the best for this position. And I mean, that's how you bring yourself out, I would say, you know?
I definitely agree with that because I mean, look at the stories that we have. I don't think there's like no real new story that's being created now, but it's different perspectives. And I think that's what we need. We need more of. And speaking from being a Black director, we need more Black perspectives. We have Lena Waithe, we have Tyler Perry, we have Ava DuVernay. There's Spike Lee, but there's still more perspectives to the Black diaspora that needs to be expressed. And I think, you know, going back to Dr. Seuss, you know, you're the best, you're only you that, you know, that whole rhyme. Yeah. I think that's like, people need to embrace that. Like, I'm not the best yet. I'm not the best yet. But all my experiences that I've collected in my life thus far, being from a single parent household, living on the South Side, going to school in rural Maine, you know, working in music, working as an actor, all those things are like a melting pot of experiences that will influence my writing. Like, I wouldn't got to switching if I didn't dance in college and then work loosely in the music industry to like hear sound, like try to create beats from just nothing. I wouldn't have got to that experimental film if I didn't go through that stuff. I think a lot of times people try to reflect, and it's easy to do as human beings because we all want validation, confirmation, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. But to look internally to see what you already have and using that to give you confidence to make your own art will make it so much easier than comparing yourself to your peers. And that's something that I still have to work on. And it's gotten better, but like when I started the program to Paul, I was just like, I'm not good. I don't need to be here. But now it's like, I'm here and I'm here for a reason. Why is that? And so my first year at Paul was just like figuring out, why did I get in this program? What is my voice? I already had it, but I needed to know for myself what my perspective was.
Yeah. I mean, and especially in film school, there's a lot of kids that are very, very pretentious, like going into like freshman year, like, oh yeah, like I've been making films since like high school and stuff. And like, like I have a bunch of more experience than anyone here. And they try to like outsmart the teacher as well in class.
Isn't it funny that they make the worst shit though?
Honestly,
like they make like not authentic. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean but like
no, you're fine.
that just erupted into my head when you said that. Because I mean, I can envision those. Because we've all met if you've been to film school.
Of course,
yeah.
10 to 20 of those people in your classes. Man, this is so good. I feel like it's gonna help a lot of people out if people are listening to this and really taking this in. Like, I mean, so with Daniela and George, what you guys are saying, like, yeah, like, obviously, I know that there are currently in my current form better writers than me, but I decided to take this mental approach a long time ago because I just thought it would be just healthier for me mentally. I would just always like, I'm just competing with the person who I was yesterday.
Exactly.
I don't give a shit what not that I don't love and admire Daniela, but I don't give a shit about what she like. I'm not comparing what she's doing to me. I'm not comparing what George is doing over here to what I'm doing over here. I'm just, how do I make what I output, my stuff, my writing, my films better than it was a month ago? Like that's, to me, that's the only metric that you need to be comparing yourself to.
That's really interesting because that kind of brings me back to Matthew McConaughey. And I know, like, Matthew McConaughey is the typical, like, white man in like the film industry and stuff. But he said something really important that it's like almost what you just said too. And he said he was asked a long time ago when he was little, who is your role model?
This is his Oscar speech, right?
Yeah, and it was like, me in 10 years. And then those 10 years passed, and then they asked him again, or like, because he was like, ask me again in 10 years. So 10 years passed, they asked him again, like, who's your role model? Me in 10 years. And then he's like, I'm always going to want to be chasing someone better.
Right.
Someone like myself, like, chasing the better part, or, chasing like your future self. Is what I'm saying.
I like that.
Your individual, all of our individual potentials are infinite, but when we sit around and compare ourselves to where someone is at currently to where we're at currently, we're diminishing that possible potential. So Matthew McConaughey always explains things very like esoterically and very like, it kind of sounds silly. But that actually is a very smart piece of advice. It's like, don't worry so much about what your contemporaries, learn from your contemporaries.
Yeah, learn, of course.
Like, collaborate with your contemporaries, but don't be like, oh shit, George just released this amazing short, and it's got a really unique approach, and it's not like something that I would make, but I really dig it. Oh, why don't I make something like that? Don't do that, because that's going to take away. Then you're going to stop doing what, like, you're not going to tell stories from your perspective and your, like your approach. You're going to try to be mimicking someone else's because you see their success. You're like, oh, that people like that person's perspective. I should just do some of that. But that creates inauthenticity in your own work.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's also a lot of like a big problem, especially now. And we keep seeing like the same stories, just different fonts.
I love that.
Yeah. But again, has that not been? Obviously, like, there have been so many stories, but we've seen throughout the history of stories and narrative that we've always been recycling.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference
is cyclical.
It's very cyclical. It's always coming back. The hero's journey and those types of archetypes, like, they're so universal. Everyone. When that is implemented in a story, everyone gets enriched in it because it reflects the human experience, and that's what stories do. I mean, don't you think though that the specialness, the special unique quality of stories is always the person who's telling it, not the story itself?
I think so. I think, I mean, a quote that I like to reflect on when I'm writing was, the most personal is the most creative, and that's been like put on in Tumblrs and, Google and all that stuff. But I think the heart of that is your individual experience will color a story totally different than your counterparts. Like each of us can write a story about our families or about being on this podcast, and, as an example, and it'll be totally different. And that is fine because of our life experiences helps color that story. And I think the hard part in film and art is being real with yourself and what you're willing to expose about yourself in your art. Because I think and it doesn't have to be dramatic. I think people sometimes confuse like vulnerability with art was like, I'm going to make a drama. No, not necessarily. It can be a comedy. It can be a sci-fi. But what is that personal connection for you with this story? And if you know that, and if you're willing to open yourself to that script, to that, the film, it will be different. I guarantee it will be different because, again, no one has the same life experiences as you do.
Mm-hmm.
And drawing from that will enrich it so much. I mean, there's been times like we talked about Frequency, the short I made for class. I made that was a 24-hour midterm that we had to do for John Sothis, and he gave us a prompt like he gave stipulations on what to do. Like the cut, we had to cut every 10 seconds. It had to be French New Wave. And if anyone knows me, no, that's like my bread and butter. And some other things. And he didn't give us no guidelines, like create a short. And I knew instantly that I wanted to focus on, this internal world that someone can have. Like, I'm a very cerebral person, and it's hard for me to like express my feelings to family members, to friends. I've gotten much better, but at the time, that was something that I was struggling with. So the story came instantly to me. It was like, what if a man is trying to verbalize his affections for a person that may be real or not?
I didn't even think about it like that, because really at the end, you're not, because is it all right if I kind of spoil kind of?
Oh yeah, sure. It's like,
like basically, it's this very inward look at this person who's preparing himself, to go to work. He's preparing himself for his day, and you're hearing his inner monologue in his mind, and it almost feels like a poem, like he's reciting a poem for this person, and it's this individual who he's seeing and he's having this relationship with, or they're at least having this kind of sexual relationship, but it's deeper. There's an emotional attachment there, and he feels really connected to this person. And then at the very end, he says like, "I love you" out loud, and then his wife, who's in the back, also getting ready to leave, says, "I love you too." And you're like, oh crap, he's having this person that he really loves is not the person that he is in a marital relationship with.
Yeah.
And that, for me, that was the big choice. But now what you're saying is, which also makes sense, is another interpretation is like, that lover that he's envisioning may not exist. It might just be something he wants, but in the confines of his marriage doesn't have. Really good stuff, honestly.
Thank you.
Like, the story also really lines up with, like, when you think of a person, or like, this person, and you like try and like get to know them and all that stuff. And I think whenever I meet someone, I don't try and make it seem like, oh, like I make this image in my head. This is how they're going to be like, I try whenever I meet like a friend or like a new people at parties or, I try to not have that wall up of like, oh, they're going to be this way. And I think that's really important because it kind of ties into what Frequency did. He has like this idea of like, oh, so this person is going to be this way, like the way I want it to be. He's good, like you. And I feel like, when we were all little, or even now, people still do this. They all have the image of a person that they like or of a friend that they know, or, they shape it up in their head and they like shape it up so much that when they actually meet this person, it's not what they were saying at all. And it's not like,
Sure.
And it's totally like, they let themselves down and then they get mad at the person because they're not the way that they wanted them to be. It's like, it's not their fault. It's yours. You built it up to be this way. So.
Yeah. I the whole reality versus fantasy question is something that I really like to explore in art. Like the things that we sometimes, and that's what it applies to Frequency, is the life that he has in his mind more real than the one that he actually is living. And at least for me, sometimes I'm so in my head with things, like I've already thought about A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? All the way to Z, that sometimes I don't even embrace A, I don't even say in the moment. So that was part of creating that short for me. It was just, what is real and what is fantasy in your life? And for me as a creative, and this is, I want to create stories to, romanticize the Black people in different areas, but creating film is a form of therapy for me, with questions that I'm dealing with, things that I'm experiencing in my own life. So yeah, just throwing that out there.
Well, it definitely, when I watched Frequency and when I watched your other shorts, your other work, I definitely felt like you've come to understand the difference between writing and creating something from your mind as opposed to creating something from your heart. I felt like Frequency was something that you wrote from the heart, and that, because I mean, and I had to figure this out in my writing, in my work. Like I would always write things very intellectually. I'd write characters who would sound way smarter than average people. You know what I mean? And not that that's a bad thing, but like when I learned how to write emotionally, because you can write something that intellectually is sound, but if there's no heart in it from the characters and there's no flaw that the character is facing, it comes off as passionless. When you write, would you say that you write from an, I don't want to insinuate that you've actually have lived the exact experience that the person in films live, but do you write from an autobiographical kind of place, or do you take another approach?
No, I would say they glean from what's happening in my personal life. Now, is everything exactly like, my life in the shorts? No. But are there like hints and like trails of like personal aspects of my own life in each short? Yeah, very much so. I only make shorts when it's like, it connects with my own personal being. Like I got into this process, before of like creating shorts, and they were good, but they weren't like, I'll look back at them like they're just a film. It doesn't say anything about me. It doesn't say, I'm not connected when I'm watching it.
Mm-hmm.
And as a viewer, when I'm watching a short, a feature, I need to be emotionally connected with those characters, with the story, with the themes. And so when I write or come up with an idea for a short, because sometimes like experimental work, there's no script to it. But I always just check in with myself, like, what does this mean to you? How is this going to help you solve a question, present a question, but most importantly, like, how are you connected to it? So I think after Frequency and even now into like experimental work, I've gotten better with checking in with myself in regards to creating work.
I had an experience recently where I developed this idea for a sci-fi comedy about a love matchmaker in space.
Okay.
And I developed the idea a little bit. I developed the character. The characters came relatively quickly. And it was going good, and then I started like outlining the pilot. And then I realized like halfway through the outline that like these characters are cool, but I don't give a shit about what they're going through. like the characters are interesting. The world is cool. It was, and I mean, I'm not saying that like I've completely pitched it. I mean, I'll probably have to approach it from a different way if I'm gonna get myself interested in it again. But it's so true. Like if you're especially in the writing process, if you're in the writing process and your only reasoning to continue writing it is just, well, maybe it could sell, maybe it's like kind of interesting to some people. It's not interesting to you. You should just stop. You should stop what you're doing. You should hang up the towel. Maybe put it in a drawer and come back to it down the line where you're like a different person, and then maybe it'll resonate with you better because you're a new person if you learn new things after time. But yeah, and those are always disappointing. Like they're so disappointing when that happens, because then you realize, oh, that I wasn't as into this as I had convinced myself that it's a weird thing, but if you recognize it, you'll save yourself time for better things.
So an example, this quarter with Brian Zom's Experimental 2 class, I was working on a feature, and we had our first assignment 2 weeks into the quarter, and I was already like behind. And the assignment was a Flickr film, and pre Brian Zom, I thought experimental film was whack. To be totally honest, and I even told him that.
I'm
like,
that stuff?
No, seriously, I told him, I was like, experimental. No, I don't do this. But through experimental 1, I fell in love with it. But back to your point about being connected with it, being connected with your art. So he gave us this prompt to making a Flickr film, and I was just wrapping my head around like, what am I gonna make? And so I came up with this concept of like this guy running, right? But he's running, and then he changes, like things get piled onto him, like life experiences, like he gets married, he has to pay bills, yada yada yada. And I filmed it, and when I look back at the footage, I'm like, this is so whack, dude. Like, you were just trying to like make something to, I don't even know why I did it. I thought it made sense in my head, but looking back over, it was just bad. And so the assignment came up, and like, what am I going to do? And I just watched me running a couple of times, and then the news was on, and it talked about another African American man being slain by police brutality. And every time that situation happens, I shut down, because it just emotionally, it's a lot. Like my mother, she's very protective of me when I'm going out, because she doesn't want anything to happen to me, and I get it. And also I get afraid of going outside too, because I don't know what's going to happen. And even though I'm a person of faith, it's just a real thing. Like, I don't know what can happen when I go outside. And so that anxiety built up again, and I looked at the footage and I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put all my anxiety into this Flickr film about these men playing and me running away from that violence. And that's how that short came to be.
That's how Run Boy. That's how that came to be.
Yeah, because I needed to unleash that, because it really was debilitating for a while. Like that, and then even when George Floyd, when that situation, I did not go outside. My mom she was trying to like get me out, like, George, hey, how you doing? Like, I'm staying inside. I'm good. I'm not going out. Postmates,
Right.
stuff delivery to me. And so in that same vein, I had to create something to channel that energy and to express how I felt about the situation so I can not move past, but just find some resolution with it.
Mm-hmm.
With the when that occurred, when you, because I remember seeing that short Run Boy Run on Instagram. And I saw, I'm like, oh, well, my goodness, this feels so like personal. It didn't feel, like how corporations will like, kind of put ads about like Black Lives Matter. And you feel really inauthentic. I felt like, oh, this is like actually real. This feels authentic. This feels like it's really talking about the issue at hand, and or really not even talking about it, but like emotionally making us feel it and not lose and not like, the nature of social media.
Yeah.
We'll experience these horrible acts of violence, and everyone will get obviously, get upset and like, what is going on? And then it's like a trend, and it goes away, and then another
to the next dance.
Yeah, it's gross, but like that seems to be how social media. Again, we were talking about virtual signaling. Sometimes it feels like virtual signaling. Like, do people really give a shit about this, or like we just like following a trend?
Yeah, like I definitely get what you're saying for like the like how the corporations do that. Like, well, I mean, this whole month of June was Pride Month, so and then you see like all the ugly like I don't want to swear on the podcast, but it's super ugly.
I mean, I already said shit, so
like, and it's like, do they actually like? I don't think they actually like wearing this, or like during. I know they do something for like Cinco de Mayo. And
gosh.
They put all like the tacos on like the tank top and stuff, like tacos and tequila. Like, guys, we don't actually like celebrate it like at all. And then the Americans are the ones that enjoy going out to get drinks and all, but like, or like the Independence Day for Mexico. I was like in Party City. They also do that thing where like they have like the red, white, and green, and then and then they always associate us with tacos. And like, guys, we're not just about tacos. Like,
it's not just tacos.
Guys, come on. It's also like quesadillas or something. Switch it up.
Yeah, because we were talking about like on the podcast that me and Daniela just did, and we were just talking, and I had not known that Mexican people do not give a shit about Cinco de Mayo. Like, they don't give a crap about it nearly as much as like the Americanized public thinks that they do, which is like, it's so weird that like, I know we're getting off topic from Run Boy, but it's like, it's just a very weird thing that a certain amount of the population buys into, and you don't know why. I don't know. It's weird. I mean,
it kind of does. Not that it has to do exactly with Run Boy, but Run Boy brings in diversity into the film industry and breaks, stereotypes. And that's a lot of like what in the US, a lot of people just associate, Black people with being gangsters or being like, they do all these bad stuff. And then they associate Mexicans with being drug dealers, a part of the cartel, like crossing the border. And then like, and it's what George said. There's like so many other stories, like, yes, like it's important to bring it to light, but there's so many other stories that aren't just about that, that we aren't just from the South Side, or we just aren't from, crossing the border, not using an airplane. Like this is, I mean, it does have to do with like the stereotypes that we are put through, especially in the movie industry.
And then that's why I try to find every, Black boy and Black man slain, like a smiling picture of them, because they are more than the media outlet puts out on them. And going into making it, and just in general, like I found myself, especially in my experimental art, really leaning into the Black experience. And I thought I was not going to do that. Like, I don't consider myself as an activist or, I like to be fair as much as possible when it comes to like social justice issues. But those were the things that were on my mind.
Yeah.
And there were like,
you're living the experience. So it's
I'm
very hard
living
for
it.
you to not to disassociate from that.
Yeah, I have to figure out some way through my perspective to address this problem. And it wasn't like in a commercialized way. Like I said, it was more therapeutic. Just like, hey, I'm also running away from this type of like anxiety or like, I don't know. I don't even call it a truth, but just like a trauma that's in our society. So with that, and then like, even for like role model, like I didn't even think, I don't like to use myself in experimental shorts.
Oh yeah,
but like
role model is, I mean, it's doing a very similar thing, but in a different way.
Yeah. So the film deals with a black man trying to make himself beautiful. And this is something that I've struggled with a lot, especially being dark skinned. Growing up, I wasn't deemed attractive. Like there was times when in high school, especially, I thought about bleaching my skin. I didn't like the shape of my nose. I was, one of my friends in high school said I had like a nose like a Muppet. Like my lips was like, talked about. And even like my physical structure, I just did not feel like I was adequate enough. Like I felt like either I had to uphold these like Adonis or like Mandingo physical attributes or I was nothing. And so, and again, it was just something that I was dealing with, especially during that time. I just felt unattractive. And so I put my feelings into that and compared myself with pictures that I typically see in magazines, showered with praise, particularly white men for their looks. And it was very, I didn't want to make it, but again, I knew I had to for my own psyche. Yeah. And so we compared ourselves to that. And then there's this beautiful quote from James Baldwin about the place of the American Negro in society, that I gleaned the word role, the title role model from. And then at the end, I transform into the idea of beauty in society. So yeah, it was, I love that piece so much because it was simple, but I feel like it accomplishes a lot in a short amount of time. With a short amount of resources.
That seems to be your ability. I mean, that seems to be, from all of the stuff that I saw, you worked within this very short frame of time, yet you were able to hit upon such deep systemic problems in our, and not just on like, police brutality, but like on beauty. Like the examination of beauty between different of people of different races. Like that's a very complex and nuanced thing to explore. But yet I felt a really deep impact in, what was it, 2-3 minutes?
It was 30.
Not even. Dude, it's such a short time.
Yeah, and again, I think that's what I've really learned during the pandemic because I made it like last October or whatever. It's just like I feel comfortable in using what I have to create a story. Like I would encourage any artist to look at the resources that you have available to you and start there because I think that will help you get past that roadblock of like, I can't make it in this industry. Well, if you got a pot and a fan and yourself, what story can you create with a pot, a fan, and yourself? I was, having this woe is me moment, and I had a stack of GQ magazines, and I said, I'm going to use these GQ magazines. I'm going to call my buddy who has a camera, get my best friend who can like throw some magazine covers on me, and call this actor who's just gorgeous and see if he will do it. And that's what happened. So I think sometimes I find that people don't like limitations, but limitations actually births creativity, more creativity than you can expect, because you can actually accomplish something with the resources that you have available, instead of like, I want to make the short in Wyoming with a deer and I don't know, a sheriff. Well, if you've never been to Wyoming and you don't have a permit for a deer, how are you going to make a short? But if you got a pot and a fan and yourself, you can make that, you know?
Yeah.
But it's those, I think those simple things, that's what helped me find more of my creative voice and gave me the confidence to step forward in creating my art. It's like, this is what I have. I'm going to use what I have. And being intentional with those resources actually made the storytelling process easier.
Yeah, I would definitely, in the recent amount of events that have happened, not just in like my life, but like in general, I would definitely see like, it's like there's a lot of limitations for people of color in the industry. And, especially, like also like women in the industry, as well. There's a lot of like, but now that you said limitations, I feel like we should start looking at these limitations as a ticking time bomb, and then use that as a ticking time bomb to create all these amazing stories that are just locked inside that we don't know about, or that people haven't heard about, but are like so relatable to anyone in the world.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really cool. Like just, use it as a ticking time bomb.
Yeah. I encourage anyone and this is what I did for myself. I wrote a list of things that I own. Like I'm still at home, which is great, but it's sometimes not so great. But for the most part, it's like, think of resources that I have available to me. My mother's really connected in the Bronzeville community. So it's like, she knows this person who owns this sandwich shop. Maybe I can reach out to the sandwich shop and say, based off of my mother's connection, hey, can you donate some food to us for the short that I have? Like, for switching, the middle frame, that was filmed in my mom's office. Like, I asked my friends to come over individually, and I literally filmed in our hallway a camera, just their individual takes. And for the dancer, originally I was going to do it in the same hallway, but I'm like, it's too bleak. I need something different.
Yeah.
I asked my mom, like, hey, can I go film in your office? She asked her boss, and they said, yeah. And then boom, I had a hallway to film. So it's like, making a list, of things that you have will help you create more.
Mm-hmm.
And it will help even, hopefully I'll be able to expand budgets and locations, all that, as I advance in my career. But if you can do it now with limited resources, imagine what you can do. If you have $5 right now, imagine what you can do with 50, or like 20, or, 2,000, and even more, because then you can be more, frugal in your approach with filming.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when you're handed so much freedom or resources, it can become overwhelming. But if you can like push it in a tiny box and say, this is all I have, how can I make the most out of it? You'll be sweet. Like, it's so fun just to create on what I have.
That's a lesson that's learned in comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at like really funny sitcoms. I mean, I don't know. I think in Seinfeld, I mean, I don't know if y'all are fans of Seinfeld or even watch Seinfeld, but like their whole model was, or I think it was an interview with Larry David, like, is like the best stuff. Like, if you put way too much money, then stuff isn't funny. Like, it's like you get more creative and you tap into the absurdity of everyday normal life when you're looking at it from just like a very limited lens. Like, just what can we capture that's like every day that people experience, that's like funny and that's like absurd and like people can relate to. It's that sensibility that I think is related to what you're saying. It's tapping into the, well, one, it starts with looking at what you have as opposed to what you don't have. people look at what they don't have, and then they like. It's not going to be like it. With what I have, it might not look like what I've seen on screen, so I'm not going to do it. That's the ultimate, just that kills most people in the tracks. Right. Well, exactly. But that for a lot of people, they because it's a vulnerability thing. They're like, I don't want to make anything that might not be like a Spielberg film. That's well, Spielberg made shorts when he was a kid with his buddies with Super 8 cameras, and those didn't look like Jurassic Park. So what you can't. What are we doing here? Right. It's. I want to know how I could go to someone who wants to make stuff, but has this doubt, and lift it for them and take it away from them. But it almost seems like you can't do that for another person. That's almost impossible. But I think our goal with a podcast like this and with talking about this stuff, the whole point is for people who want to do it and who might be listening to this. This is it takes work, it takes imagination, it takes creativity, it takes guts, but this is so doable. It's so doable.
And it's also people say oh, I don't have the time, or I don't have I don't have, I'm just so busy with other things that are going on. Then at that point you kind of have to make the time, dude, sometimes you have to go to school at 9 a.m. You have a 9 a.m. class for college, and then you have work the whole rest of the day. And then, but if what you really want to do is be a writer, then make the time. Maybe, when you get out of work, get some dinner, take a 30-minute nap, and then write from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. And then before you go to work, or I don't know,
or wake up early. Wake up you got class at 9. Wake up at 6, and then have at least a solid 1 to 2 hours, and then you can go about what you were gonna do.
Yeah,
my grandma tells me she would tell us all the time, people make time for the things they want to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you want to work out, you'll make time for it. If you want to date somebody, you'll make time for it. It's just seriously, it's just an excuse that, and that's something I have to tell myself. Film, I'm good, but when personal life stuff, I'm do I want to do it? And then I hear myself complaining. I'm you don't want to make time for it, so stop complaining.
Mm-hmm.
But that internal connection, that internal checks and balances, that's something that someone has to learn on their own. I wasn't like this 5 years ago. No. It takes time to develop that. All we can do, and I really love this podcast, is just provide the resources. Maybe they'll listen to it and put it in their subconscious, and then 3 years later, oh, what were they talking about? I can do this. It's a process, but you make time for what you want to do.
Yeah, 100%. You definitely, if you want, there's always this saying that people that I always hear at random moments in my life, and it's if you wanted to, you could. I think that's the way it goes, or if they wanted to, they would. It's something like that. But that's so. I feel like it applies for anything,
Yeah.
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 It's epic.
It really, what it comes down to is, are you willing to let go of fear and self-doubt? Because, and this has been a year-long process for myself, but it's every time where I feel like I might procrastinate, or if I'm not diving headfirst into something, it's always because of fear. I can always try it's always either that. It's either fear or self-doubt that I won't be up to the challenge. I'm not ready for this thing, so I'm fearing that doing this will be the wrong time. But then again, there's never a right time for anything. There's never really a perfect moment where you're ready to do the thing that you want to do. So you do kind of just have to be I'll probably make mistakes. And here's the thing. If you want to be a filmmaker, if you're listening to this and you want to be a filmmaker, I can guarantee you that you will make mistakes along, that you will make errors in judgment. Good God. The stuff I've had to learn, and messed up on is so much. I mean, the first scripts I wrote, I would never show them to anybody ever under any circumstances. Never, ever, 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 ever.
Yeah.
But I know now because I tolerated being mediocre, I can now look at what I've done and how much of a better understanding that I have now because I threw myself at it. I can be like, oh, that's how you get better. You have to tolerate being the amateur before you can ever become the professional. It's that kind of thing. Like, you have to tolerate sucking at first, kind of, you have to tolerate just not being at the level where you want to be at the beginning.
And people don't like doing that. And
it takes humility to do that. It takes a huge level.
Oh, snap. Now that's a real swear word right there. Humility. Not in today's age.
It's hard for people to be humble. Some people view it as being weak, which honestly, if you're humble and you have conviction, that's the perfect combination. Like, if you have conviction in what you're doing, but you have the ability to detach from your ego when you can or when it's necessary, that's like leadership. Like, you're on another level, in my opinion. I mean, that's when things really turned around for me. When I made that understanding.
And people are more likely to help you when you're in that mindset, mentality. And it's not out of pity, it's out of investment.
Respect.
And that's what I had to learn. Like, I had to bite the bullet and just say, like, hey, I need help with this. Can you help me? And 9 times out of the 10, people were very gung-ho about it. Like, yeah, let me help you. I'll show you. I'll teach you this. Humility is, I think that is what advances people's careers more than gravitas and filmmaking. Because if you can be humble with what you have now, imagine where your life will be or your career will be further along. A large part of film is personality based, and I don't think people really realize that. Like, do people want to work with you? You can be you can be the second coming of, Spielberg, Spike Lee, like the hybrid baby, scientific, I don't know, alien version of them all. But if you are a terrible person, if you're rude to people, if you are just not a good human being, your career won't advance.
Yeah.
Even if you have all that stuff, it won't, because it is personality based. Imagine, think about all the kids who maybe go to USC. They probably are not as better as you or I or any of us. But why did they advance? Well, first, they have their parents might have better relationships with people in film industry, and based off their parents' good relationships with someone in the studio, they bank off their parents' personality and say, "Oh, I'm going to hire your daughter. I'm going to hire your son."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if that can happen there, imagine what that can do for us. I mean, I don't have no golden spoon. I'm making, I'm trailblazing this on my own, but I found by just being nice to people, respecting people as human beings, it has done wonders for what I do as a creative.
I think the big thing, especially now, what we should bring more into light is respect. Like, respect is such a big thing, especially in the film industry, and it should be more of a big thing because, that thing that you said about it's like escaping, and you just said it to me, and it's like what you just said about like insecurity and all that stuff, like on the inside, yeah, humility, yeah. It's like, I feel like that doesn't just apply to, like film in general. It can also apply to things. I mean, this whole conversation that we're having can apply to both. So use it as you to the audience that likes to listen. But, a lot of people, like, for example, like influencers, that's such a big thing now in our generation. They could have like the perfect body, the perfect hair, the perfect car, life, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. Right? But if they're a shit person inside, then it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't, it's the same thing. Like, I mean, I've never personally met Spielberg or, any, famous director or actress or actor. But, there's rumors about people that are dicks or assholes in the industry. And it's like, a lot of people don't want to work with them because they're rude. They're just like people on the inside. So it's like, yeah.
Something that just came to mind is like, sorry, my mom would say this all the time. She would say, "You'll get by, but you'll never get over." And what she means by that is just like, you can pretend to be the nicest person in the world and all that stuff, but eventually what you do to people, good or bad, both, will catch up to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just one of the things that it just came up to mind when you said that. Just like, look at how many people's careers have altered when they were later on in their career because of things that happened early on. People grow, yada, yada, yada. But, it's just, I don't know, it's just a thought process of just treating people with respect.
In other words, it is karma. Well, it's definitely karmic in many respects. And really what it comes down to, this shift that we're seeing with like, I don't know if what I could call it better moral standards within the workplace. I think that people, it's also kudos to I know people give our generation for whatever reason crap, or like older generations look down on us for whatever reasons. But I think
it happens to every generation.
It happens to every generation.
Those young kids, they don't know what
they're always crapping on the younger ones.
They're rebellious.
That's
a great impression of an old person.
Thank you.
The acting class has really paid off then.
Yes.
I almost choked on this water.
It comes down to really, like, it seems that the younger generations are not tolerating it anymore. Like it used to be like, and maybe this was just, again, I'm making assumptions. Like, it seemed that it used to be like, well, if a person's kind of a monster on set, if they're like a creative who's kind of like a monster on set, as long as they make good stuff, we'll forgive it because they make good things and we admire the art or whatever. And like Kubrick, I love Kubrick's movies, but and I don't know, like, I mean, again, I don't know a lot about Kubrick personally, but sounds like he could really test actors. He could really drive actors to like very bad emotional states. Not really for the purposes of well, I guess in his mind it was for the purposes of the acting performance, but from our standards, looking at it would be seen as really extreme and not hospitable. I don't think you can get away with that anymore.
No.
Like, I think that's much harder to get away with. Like, the director is no longer God. The director is the facilitator of the creative vision. And that's it.
Yeah.
There's also, it's really important, to bring in like the fine line where you want to, when you're trying to help the actor bring out the best performance up to the point where it's like emotional abuse. It's
with Kubrick, that was like, he was coming at it from an approach, but the actress, and I'm talking specifically about the actress, I forget her name, who was in The Shining. The mom.
Oh, yes. What's her name?
I forget the actress's name. I want to say her last name is Shelley.
Yeah, I think it is. I saw something about her the other day, too, about her being on an interview and all that stuff and how bad, like, that movie, like, or working with Kubrick really, like, messed her up.
That's the thing. Great performance, great movie, but like it is said, and again, I don't, I'm not fact checking this, but it's been notorious that Kubrick would purposely make her scared. Like, he would purposely set up the set where like it was scary and she felt scared, so that she would be scared when the camera rolled. But again, it's not like she agreed upon that.
Yeah.
It's not like her and Kubrick were together aligned with this approach and how it was going to go down. It was literally like the director decided this is it. This is how we're going to do it. And honestly, I'm not a big, as a director, I don't subscribe to the whole like method acting thing. Like I understand there are certain actors that really appreciate that. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think the performances are necessarily, I think great actors can turn it on and do it, and then they can stop, and we don't have to live in it the whole time. But that's just me personally.
I agree with that.
I mean,
yeah, it's just my.
Yeah, I mean, like, no disrespect to him, but like Heath Ledger in The Joker, he had a really tough time. He actually like didn't sleep for days because he wanted to seem crazy, and
Right.
I mean, it's obviously like
Yep.
a very touchy subject because he died because of, I don't want to say that I don't know personally and I'm not fact checking it either, but, after that role, he did die and he gave us one of the greatest performances in any superhero movie ever as a supervillain, the Joker, but it's like, life. And yes, I bet a lot of actors will disagree with me, like saying this, but you shouldn't put your life or respect or dignity on a line because of a role. Like you're your own person, you deserve that respect and you earned that respect, and all that stuff. Like you shouldn't put life on the line because of that. So, but yeah,
Well,
I guess
I think the penultimate question is, which I think it really wouldn't have mattered. Did Heath Ledger, for example, did him going that far, say if he didn't do that and he just studied how crazy people, or how someone would say a mental illness that was congruent with what the character of the Joker was in that movie, if he had just studied that without actually having to not sleep for several days, without putting his physical body in jeopardy, his mental, would it have mattered in the performance? Would the performance have been less if he didn't do that? I don't think it would have been. I don't think it would have been less, but there is this understanding with, at least in the method acting world, that you go full out, and that's the way to truly be authentic. But I agree with what you said, Danielle. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth killing yourself, because then you're never going to act again.
Chameleon actors, that, I don't know if they do method act when they change from totally, you see them in one movie, they look totally spiced up because they were playing a rich role, and then they go and be a homeless person in another film. And then, they don't have to, they could study the role of a super rich person or of a super poor person or a homeless person, and then, just study them. And, but you don't actually have to put yourself through, going and living outside on the streets when you have a perfectly nice apartment up on the Upper East Side in New York. You don't have to, you can definitely go and ask people about do research on a role. That's what acting is. You do research for a role.
I can definitely see the pros of going into the environment.
Yeah.
Like if someone was I'm going to play someone who grows up in this area, in this low income area of the city, and I'm not used to that, I should probably go there and actually communicate and interact with the people who live there. Actually get a feeling of what that's like. But does that mean you have to live on the street? Do you have to fully go there to get that perspective? I don't think so. Again, it's a balance. It's definitely, I think as an actor you're required to study and you're required to put yourself in the shoes of that individual. But you also have to have a restraint of I don't want to wreck myself. I need to keep myself intact.
I know some actors are pro method, and for me, I don't think that's healthy, because you should be able to this is your job. And just like you clock off the job, you should clock off when you're not acting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my mindset. But the part of the director is to ensure the well-being of their actors as well. And that's something that I'm very intentional about because of my own experiences in acting. Like, I've experienced like terrible student short films that I've been on, terrible stuff, conditions, and I've had a great experience as well. So for me, I at least try to do as much rehearsal work with the actors prior to, so they get into the rhythm of like, we're in it, then we're out.
Mm-hmm.
So when on set, we've already built this chemistry together, whereas there is a beginning point and end point to this performance, or not to performance, to this experience. So when we get onto set, it's just repetition there. Not repetition in the terms of like the performance, but repetition of the intentionality and the intentionality of being present in those moments. So yeah, I'm not for method acting. I think that's too much.
What if, and tell me if you've had this experience, because this is a really, as directors, this is a really interesting topic to get into. What if your actor says, I need to do it? Like, what if they're insistent on like full ass, I don't know why I said full ass doing it, but like full out doing it.
I wouldn't have hired them.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So in the process of casting, if you saw that tendency,
yeah, no. See, that's so, and that's part of my, like, when I started DePaul, like, yeah, I knew how to act, but casting is a whole nother art. And so what I try to do is, like, again, find those resources, find people who are better in those areas, and to learn from them. So I got an internship at O'Connor Casting, and they taught me how to weed people out very quickly in terms of even before they get into the room. I know like who's gonna do well, who's not.
What are the big red flags? Like, what are the red flags?
Well, those are my secrets. No. It's, well, a large part of it, I mean, it sounds really simple, but it's major. The way their headshots, that's how a lot of people got knocked out. Because you can tell by the investment of an actor's headshot how serious they are for a project. 2, their training. Like, now this is what I'm not going to share. There are specific places that they pinpointed, like, these are good actors, these are not good, if they've taken these certain classes. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Okay. So certain approaches to acting, like if someone went
certain programs, certain classes that they've taken in Chicago, I can only talk about Chicago, was a way to weed people out. And then in the room, casting is such an art. Like, by giving small immediate directions on like, go here to here, basic blocking with like a long line, you can obviously tell, not obviously, but that was a way of saying like, this is a good actor, or trained, I won't say good, a trained actor versus an amateur actor.
Mm-hmm.
Because acting requires openness and vulnerability and being able to follow. And most actors are not open and they don't want to follow because they come in prepared with what they think works, right? So they can't listen to a casting director giving them directions, and then they're not open and vulnerable to the point where they can leave everything that they prepare prior to coming to that audition room and just exposing themselves. That's why acting is not an easy, people just want to go into acting. It is not an easy thing to do. You have to basically expose your soul, your being, your person to casting directors, agents every single day. And so if you have the ability to expose yourself emotionally, intellectually, at a drop of a dime, oh, I'll work with you. Because if you can do that just by yourself, I can give you a script. You can prepare something, and then we get on set, and I can say, "Hey, let's go this way," and you can pivot.
Yeah. Well, with actors, it's important for me to feel like whenever we're about to like go for a take, when we're casting, because for me, I feel like every time that an actor performs, every time we're shooting, it's an act of discovery. Like it's an act of finding something, of not having necessarily preconceived notions of what might be there when you are about to do it. So, that's a great mindset and piece of advice. Like, don't go in, if you're an actor, don't get hung up on like what you prepared for.
Oh man, like I would love to deep dive into casting. Like I love working on casting because a lot of the decisions that are made, especially for like bigger things, are made prior to you even stepping into the room. I mean, that's like all vanity stuff and experience, right? Once you get past that, you're already, I mean, as artists, we're always seeking validation in general. Like we're all like, love me, love me, love me, love me. Some people are not, but it's like, if you're acting, there is a part of you that wants to be validated in the sense like you're good enough for this role.
Mm-hmm.
The people that get casted a lot are just comfortable in who they are. And it's not taking away that they don't want validation as well, but it's more of like, I'm validated enough by myself that if you give me validation or not, I will be okay.
It goes back to what we were talking with Pilar in the last podcast. Our voice actress Pilar, we were talking about casting. We were talking about auditioning, and she was like, "Yeah, no, the best mindset is to be almost like take it or leave it. Like be prepared, go in there, but go in there thinking that like." Because the worst thing that you can do is project a neediness for the role, because that's the most attractive energy that you can put out there. But if you have the mindset of just like, if you give it to me, amazing. If not, I'll go somewhere else. Like there's another thing for me.
That's why my classmates hire me for casting their projects, because I'm just like it. I weed people out real quick. Like, let's go. I don't have time. Let's just do, because it's when you have a perfect cast, that's half the work right there as a director.
It's like 90% of the director's job is, if you have great actors, you're like, I just need to tell them what to do on set and they'll do it. And it's great. Like, it's not, you don't have to worry about your hardest job. You know,
I had the short that I made, this experimental short I made recently that we're in post for. It's called The Magical Negro, and it's just like it's the most bombastic, cartoonish experimental short I've made thus far. But no, and while we were shooting, I didn't have that much work to do because I casted a bomb cast. Like they were just, there were times I would do like 2 or 3 takes and I maybe got another one, but I'm like, oh, let's just do another one for fun. Let's just go in a total different direction. And they did. And it's like, we finished days like an hour early because I didn't have to walk them through all this work. They came prepared, gave them some notes. They pivoted. So it was breezy. It was just so bizarre to be on that short. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, it was so, we had a fun time on set. Like, literally, I was more of like an audience member than a director because they knew, based off our conversation and rehearsal, they knew where we were going. So I gave them the freedom to just, based off of us preparing prior to. So I was fun. I was just like watching it, cacking, joking with my DP, like, this is some great stuff right here. They're really good.
I need, because we're talking about like great experiences, like I need to bring up this anecdote. Just like a few weeks ago, I did a I directed an episode of a web series for
Oh, cool.
and I was dealing mostly with a child actress. She was like, well, not like a really young child, but like 11, 12 years old, like about to become a teenager, but still she may have been a little younger than that, like maybe like 10, maybe been like 10 years old. And I was a little nervous because, we're treating this we're treating this as professionally as possible. I didn't know if I would have to like talk down to her, like if I had to like, kind of adjust, but she was so amazing. And I didn't cast her. Like she was casted beforehand and they did a really good job casting because literally I could talk to her like an adult. I could tell her, okay, this is what I need you to feel right now. This is where I need you to go. This is how I need you to move about the space. And she would just be like, yep, got it. On the day she learned how to convincingly play the violin, and like we walked through it with her mom, and like she was like, I mean, obviously we're gonna put music over it later. Like
sure,
she had to mimic, but she like authentically mimicked how you would hold a violin and play a violin on the violin strings. It was one of just the most amazing, most awe-inspiring experiences I've ever had. Like, because it made my job. Because I mean, obviously, there's multiple facets to being a director, but like my most important job, which is the actor, I thought was going to be this big trial, and it wasn't. It was probably the easiest part of the job. The easiest part of the job was just communicating with her and having a good time with her and just going through it. Like and she was better than some adult actors that I've seen on like short, you know what I mean? Like she was a legit actress. Like I told her mom, like she should continue, she should just get better at this. Like you should continue fostering this within her. What was her name? Oh my God, what was her name? Jade. Yes, Jade was her name. Jade. Oh, Jade was awesome. Yeah. I was like, I'm like, God forbid I forget what her name is, but Jade. Yeah, I'm terrible with names. I'm like,
same. I'm getting better.
Yeah, I'm getting better with that. Yeah. But yeah, that's just so cool. When you're working with really good actors, it just like, it opens you up to how good of an experience everyone can have. It's just like, I guess it makes working with bad actors worth it because now you know the difference. Because you know the difference. Oh, this is when I meet a good actor, I know from the vibe they're giving off. Like I know the difference between an amateur actor and a professional, or someone who acts either way.
I collect actors. Like, so the guy who's in Role Model, he was in Magical Negro. Like I keep people because
when you find someone, you're like,
yep,
come on,
because it just makes them work, and you can see that from so many other directors. They find their muses, and I don't believe in that because there's like, I don't know, something weird about saying that, but they find the talent that connects with their voice, and they constantly use them. So that's another thing. Like find your people, like especially actors, because that will make or break a film more, in my opinion. Well, no, let me not say more, but it'll make or break your film. There's some technical aspects too. Like you got crappy sound, then you can't fix no crappy sound. But
with films, it's almost like you kind of require an A team in all facets. I don't know if you can have a shitty. I mean, like you can have a DP, or you can have like a visual style that isn't very, stylistic or like jaw-dropping, and if it's a great story, it doesn't matter. Like you can film something naturalistic, and if it's a great story and great acting, you're still mesmerized. But yeah, you can't have any B players. Yeah, and that's why it's so daunting, because when you're assembling your team, because you have to find all these people.
Yeah,
you got to find all these people to make this A team. But it actually, I don't know. I say it's hard. Just go on a few sets, like volunteer on a few sets, and you'll meet people, and you can share with them your ideas, and then you can cultivate a group, you can cultivate a team.
Mm-hmm.
This also brings up a really good memory that I have in my acting classes in Columbia. I remember like
Okay.
the first acting class that I had in Columbia, I was like, oh, like I'm so scared. Like I'm like, and like the way that they do it in Columbia for like acting classes, you start out, it's like the basic one. They put like people that are going to be like stage directors or like, like working with lighting and all that stuff. And they put the people that actually want to be actors together in a room. And we start with the first acting class like that. And then we have to take like, they split the class up in half. They do like one day. So it was like, for me, it was Monday, Wednesday. And on Mondays, we would have our acting class. On Tuesdays, we would go, to do like theater stuff and go check out museums and all that stuff. And I remember like the majority of the people in that class were they actually didn't want to be actors. They wanted to be more like in the backstage doing backstage things and in like theater. So it was kind of difficult because we would have to do all these exercises that that you wouldn't normally do. Either you would do things when you're like under the influence or something at a party, or when you do something crazy, or when you would dance alone in your room and stuff, like they would make you do all these things with other people in the room. And there's obviously that they're gonna judge me the way that I'm doing this, or like they're gonna laugh at what I'm doing or something like that. And at first, like, it was just okay, like we'll open up like later, we'll do better later. But throughout like the whole semester, it was just like a bad class, because didn't put in the other students didn't put in the work that an actor that actually wanted to be there would put in the work for. And it was very discouraging at first. And it was like I enjoyed doing the class, but it was still the vibe of the people that were there. It was just not 100% put in. And then next semester, after this class ended, next semester I was put in a class with obviously all actors now, and I was lucky enough to have the same teacher that I had before from the first semester. And in this second class, I felt myself open up more and do these exercises and just be open with it, just like do it, do your thing. And I think I really liked that. I liked putting myself on the spot, because I'm usually a very open person when it comes to like meeting new people and all that. So I think I just like I'm like thinking in Spanish, so I'm trying to like say it in English. But like what I'm thinking of is like I was like saying, okay, you know what? Just be like, just be your weird self. Think of a weird dance movement that you do by yourself when you're alone in your apartment and no one else is seeing you. And then bring that out into the exercise. And then, every time that I would think of like do something that no one else would see, I would always get, I would always do good in the class, or I would always get like excellent participation points and all that stuff. So it's definitely like you have to put yourself in the mindset of doing something you're not comfortable with. Like, don't be scared to put yourself on the spot when you're acting, is what I learned. So that's a very important thing. But yeah, that was my story.
It kind of sums up everything that we've been talking about, like the notion of tolerating being scared or feeling amateurish from the get-go, and then evolving. I mean, you literally did that. I mean, like at the beginning, you were discouraged. You were like, "Oh wow, this is an uncomfortable place." And whenever you try something new or something that you're really interested in, you're always going to be scared because it's new. You're going into the unknown. You don't know how it's going to go down. But you took another class, and now by doing it enough times, you feel drastically more comfortable. That's how it works. I wish people would get that. That's all I'm saying. Like, I just wish people. But you can't really teach that. You can live it and then digest it, but a person has to learn how to seek that for themselves.
Yeah.
Also, you think in Spanish and then talk in English? That's really cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, I wanted to ask you to say it in Spanish, but I didn't want
No, I was
to
like
off
thinking,
your thought process.
I was thinking, I was gonna say, like, I was going to say what I said was, about the acting, like I got discouraged. And then in my head, I was like thinking, me da miedo, tengo miedo de hacer esto. So that's what I was thinking in my head. And I was trying to trying to say like, okay, like what's the word for like, or like miedo or like, fear. Like miedo is fear, but I was not thinking of that word, but I thought of discouraged, which is what it was. I mean, and I was also a little bit scared, but yeah, I was looking for more of the word discouraged. But yeah, that's what I was trying to think in Spanish, trying to communicate so you guys could understand.
No, it's really cool. I didn't know that you thought. How often do you think it? Do you always, is your inner monologue always in Spanish? And then wow.
Yeah.
But you interface in English and Spanish. Wow.
Especially when I'm on a roll and I'm like talking really fast, I think I start to think in Spanish because it comes out better in Spanish, what I'm trying to say, instead of like saying it in English.
George, I really enjoyed talking with you. This has been a really fun part. I thought we really got into some really powerful stuff here. And
thanks for having me. This was really cool. This was really cool to do. I feel so like official.
Yeah, trying to make it as official as possible.
By far, one of my favorite podcasts. I'm not going to lie to you. George, you were one of my favorite guests.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
You got the Daniela seal of approval.
Wow.
You got it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I don't know.
He can't even
going back to like trying to like translate post-pandemic. Yeah. Just going straight to nonverbals now. So
yes, I think that's I think we're gonna stop using verbal cues and go straight to emojis. I feel like that's the trajectory of society. We're just gonna smiley face, frowny face, poop emoji. That'll be the 3 letters of the alphabet.
As people like act them out, they're not talking, they're just like doing it themselves. Like
they're just like you know. They don't even George, thank you so much. Please come on another time. We'd love to have you. For real.
I would love to. I will.
Yes, Megan. Yeah, we said it here. Thank you I guess peace out, my man. Have a great day. I'll talk to you later. See you later.
All right.
Yes.
Bye.